anything you write down and any images you import. So there's no reason for us to be limited in the size and scope of information sharing between men who are currently relegated to dealing with the inevitable PC bullshit in the universities to get their education, and young men who have a chance, if we help them, to bypass it completely, or at the very least spend as little time in school as possible while still learning. Now, I can honestly say that I can accurately reproduce and teach all of my schooling in a way that anybody can understand. I've gotten A's or B's in all of my math and chemistry classes. Any young men, not women, but young men, who are interested in educating themselves without going into debt and enduring mindless required for your major indoctrination classes, I will sit down with you and devote whatever time is necessary to do so. All I ask is that you also take the time to educate yourself and others on misandry and return the favor. Men, for men's empowerment, must be willing to teach younger men specifically on the dangers of marriage as described earlier, misandry, domestic violence laws, false rape accusations, chivalry, white knighting, child support, and so on and so forth. Teaching young men about science, math, welding, plumbing, whatever, is designed first and foremost so that young men can acquire actual skill sets that will in turn enable them to capitalize on the demand for those skill sets. Therefore, if we do not combine that type of education with a complete and thorough education on the forces of misandry and how to navigate around those forces, then we're just setting them up to put in years of work, earn a bunch of money, and lose it all in divorce settlements. It's of absolute importance that we balance out any efforts to educate young men and boys with an education in misandry, or we'll just be setting them up to do the heavy lifting so that feminism can benefit off the labor of men afterwards. We must instruct our young men and boys on the futility of joining anti-man government institutions such as the Army, and we must explain to them that young, bright men with unlimited potential are the vast majority of victims, casualties, and collateral damages, as our conservative friends like to call it, in wars. Young men die in wars. The young men who survive come home to empty bank accounts and infidelity and oftentimes homelessness. So we must keep our young men and boys away from military indoctrination, period. I'd like to point out a video I saw, thanks to a good find on the Spearhead in regards to the war in Afghanistan, which as part of the larger war on terror is responsible for the deaths of thousands of American men. Now this of course is thought of as a conservative war, but I think this video should properly highlight the interchangeability of liberalism and so-called conservatism, and how they're both tied to doing whatever it takes to help women at the expense of men. Now what you're about to see is a video of comments from General James Mattis, who's just been nominated to become leader of CENTCOM. And this is what he had to say in regards to fighting against Afghan and Iraqi insurgents.
This is the man who will take over one of the U.S. military's most challenging jobs, General James Mattis, and this is what he's best known for.
Actually, it's a lot of fun to fight them, you know. It's a hell of a hoot. It's fun to shoot some people. I'll be right up with you. I like brawling.
You go into Afghanistan, you got guys who slapped women around for 5 years because they didn't wear a veil. You know, guys like that ain't got no manhood left anyway, so it's a hell of a lot of fun to shoot.
These comments could be especially hard to overcome.
So, he's pretty much saying that it's fun to kill other men, putting Americans in harm's way while doing so, and that he enjoys this because of how much these men supposedly smack their women around and force them to wear veils. Here we have what's possibly the deadliest example of white knighting in history, and he doesn't look like a liberal to me. This guy sees fit to kill other men because according to him, they treat their women badly. This man says it's fun to do so, and he says he enjoys it. So the man who's being seriously considered for the leadership position in Central Command, a position which would put him in charge of the war in Afghanistan as a whole, admits that at the very least, part of the reason we are over there is to liberate the oppressed women of the Middle East, but says nothing about the oppression of men right here in the West and in America going on right here, right now. That shows you how much conservatives give a damn about men, and that shows you what the government, both liberal and conservative, are willing to put men's lives in danger for. Remember that. This is just another example of how our governments think that the standard of living for women half a world away are more important than the blood of American and Arab men. So in conclusion, what I ask those seeking to empower men to do is A, make up some kind of pronouncement of the issues that we as men seek to rectify in a clear and concise and articulate manner. Talk about the basics, the abuses in the divorce courts, the biased domestic violence laws, false rape, reproductive equality with women, paternity fraud, parental alienation, higher death rates for men in the workplace and on the battlefield, sexual harassment, hypocrisy, decreasing health concerns for men, and whatever else is necessary. And I actually think it'd be better if all of us actually got together over the internet and discussed exactly what needs to go into this. B, start looking for venues that we can screen the best material in the men's movement to. And of course, universities are certainly viable and probably ideal, but anywhere that men congregate is suitable. Any place you can think of, any place that screens documentaries and videos will work, local radio station talk shows, anything you can think of. And this is where we'll pass out our flyers in attempts to grow a presence outside of the internet. C, we need an accounting of our various trades and talents that can be used in any meaningful way. Plumbers, electricians, welders, any math majors, science majors, any graphic designers that can help with website design or have any experience with documentary filmmaking, any pilots, any machinists, any lawyers willing to contribute to the defense of men, any small business owners willing to give an unemployed man who was a victim of the man's session a job. You need to speak up. Your talents are needed, and you can benefit young men and boys by showing them what you've learned. You know, it's not a coincidence that feminism tries over and over to separate fathers, which are by definition the older men, with their sons, which are by definition the younger men, because it prevents the transfer of wisdom and experience from older to younger men. We absolutely must do something to battle this, or we will not have success, period. D, we should start sending out letters to our politicians asking them what it is they plan to do to change the illegal and biased laws against men. Most, of course, will just send us generic default response letters or do nothing at all, and all responses will be scanned and cataloged on the internet so that any man can see just exactly what your politicians plan on doing in regards to misandry in the West. This way, those that ignore us or refuse to address the issues brought up will have a permanent record of doing so, and those that actually claim they'll do something about it will be held accountable for saying so. A complete record of every major politician's stance on the men's movement in America and the UK should not be underestimated in terms of using it as a tool to demonstrate that the government simply does not care at all about men and men's issues. And finally, if you disagree, or if you have suggestions, or if you think you can line out some sort of plan better than I just have, please, please, please do so. I'm not in a popularity contest. I'm open to suggestions. I'm open to looking at it from different perspectives, just so long as we're actually doing something to supplement our internet efforts and eventually overtake them. Now, I'm more than willing to do my fair share. And you know, what I just outlined is not perfect by any means, but the one thing that I can guarantee is that if the men's movement continues to just hang in internet limbo, more and more men are just going to decide to move on with their lives and just deal with the bullshit. We can't just make YouTube videos forever. We need to move soon before the men's movement starts to lose its inertia and the same old apathy and complacency starts to set in. Now, that's all I really got to say for now, and you know, I hope to hear from you all in regards to, you know, how you guys want to proceed. This isn't my movement. This is our movement, you know. And not a single one of you will be looked at as anything other than an equal. We have work to do, and it's time to get started. So to everybody, good night, God bless, and hopefully I'll hear from you soon.